Now I'd like to transition to what is possible, what can you do? And so we'll start with Druva's perspective. And so joining me to talk about how you can build a multi-layered defense and accelerate your recovery, I've got Celeste Kinswood, who's the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Druva, and Badri Raghunathan, who's our Director of Product. Now, one of the things you may all be wondering is, how do I protect myself? And there's really three parts to this. The first thing is you absolutely need to be able to protect your data. You can't recover unless your data is protected. Then we're going to talk about how you operationalize it. Having all the right tools and all the right technology doesn't matter if you're not able to run efficiently. And then, of course, finally, when that ransomware attack hits, and it will hit, you want to be able to recover as quickly and as cleanly as possible. So let's dive right in. So first off, how are you going to be able to protect yourself from a ransomware attack? Again, it really starts with three things. The first is you absolutely need to make sure that you have integrity and availability for your backups. You need to make sure that your data is safe, because even when your production data is being attacked, even as the ransomware attackers are ravaging your production environment, you need to be confident that you're going to be able to recover so you don't have to pay that ransom. Now, the only way you can have that confidence, though, is not just technology. You have to know that the operations are working efficiently. All the best technology in the world doesn't help if your backups aren't running, if you're not protecting your environment, if you're not monitoring what's happening, if you're not keeping yourself safe. So we're going to talk about how you can operationalize. And then finally, the best backups in the world, the best operations in the world don't matter if it will take you weeks and weeks to recover the kind of data that you need. So let's talk about then how you can absolutely recover and accelerate your recovery. So I'm going to kick this off first with, how do you maintain that integrity and availability for your backup data? Because as we all know, the first thing that ransomware attackers try to do is they try to delete your backups, because they know that's the one way that you can fight them, the one way you can resist them. And so there's a few steps you need to take to make sure that you are safe. The first step is you've got to air gap and make immutable backups. Because again, that ransomware, it's going to get into your environment and it's going to try to delete or corrupt your backups. So by creating that air gap, it's not able to get to your backups. Now, of course, here at Druva, we look at this and we say, well, the best air gap is storing your backups in the cloud under separate control, under Druva control, in an environment where ransomware can't run, because there is no persistent operations that are running that ransomware can attach to. The second thing is, that ransomware attack is going to try to get control of all of your environment. It isn't just trying to delete data or encrypt data. It's trying to get control of your email, control of your phone system, control of your Slack, all of your messaging. It wants all of it, because it knows the more control in your environment it gets, the more havoc it can wreak. And that's why it's so important to have a zero trust environment, especially for your administrators. Because whether it's an internal bad actor or an external actor, you don't want some external force being able to log in and delete all your backups, or get root access on a system and delete all of the data or clear out the system. So it's important that you have multi-factor authentication in a zero trust environment to make sure that bad actors, either internal or external, are not able to delete your backups and again leave you exposed. And then, of course, you need to tell yourself, but what if it does happen? Because all the worst disasters that have happened in history, it's never just one thing. It's never just two things. It's multiple areas failing over time. So if the hackers get control of your environment, if they're able to trigger those backups, how are you going to protect yourself? And that's where Druva introduces delayed deletion, to make sure that even if your backups are deleted, even if some rogue administrator comes in, those backups are held for another week before they're truly reaped, so that if you detect, and you will detect in 7 days if you've been hit that hard, your data can still be protected and recovered. So now we've talked about how you can make sure that your backups are safe. That air-gapped environment with immutable backups that can't be deleted. That environment with MFA and zero trust, so that no one can even try to delete those backups. And the delayed deletion, so that even if everything else fails, you know that your backups are there. Let's now talk about how you can operationalize that, how you can make sure that your environment on a daily basis is continuing to keep itself safe from ransomware attacks. And to do that, I'd like to introduce Celeste.
Thanks for the introduction, Stephen. My name's Celeste Kinswood, and I'm the Senior PMM for Cyber Resilience here at Druva. And as Stephen just mentioned, taking care of the data, ensuring that your data is secure is really only the first step in cyber resilience. The next is ensuring that the tech stack that handles that data is also secure. To do that, you need to do two things. One, you need to select vendors that are not going to introduce vulnerabilities into your environment. The second is that you need to bake security into the way that you do business. You need to operationalize security. That is, make it a measurable, business-oriented part of your daily operations. Unfortunately, managing that kind of security across multiple solutions can become difficult and complex very quickly. And that means that systems go unpatched, vulnerabilities stay open. As Stephen mentioned, almost half of vulnerabilities are exploited after a patch was already released. And when that happens, attackers can gain access through those unpatched or vulnerable systems. When that happens, it can be devastating, not only because hackers can delete backup data, but also because they can delete administrative profiles or in other ways damage the environment. To combat that, you want to look for a truly software as a service solution that's going to provide all of the security operations that you need automatically. Here at Druva, we offer those security operations 24/7, 365 in the form of running vulnerability scans constantly, running penetration tests, and then, of course, the patches and upgrades that are necessary to fix those vulnerabilities happen automatically because of our SaaS model. In addition to that, we also ensure that the code for our platform is extremely secure and that access to that code is secure. Our own developers have extremely restricted access to our operating environment, and we monitor that access so that we understand exactly what's going on in our systems at all times. We also extend that dedicated security operations and 24/7 monitoring to customer backup environments. What that means is that our cloud ops team is constantly monitoring customer backup environments for things like mass deletion events. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. What happens if our cloud ops team sees, again, a large portion of data deleted is we'll actually alert our service team. And our service team will create a support ticket, reach out to the customer and ask, hey, did you really mean to delete 50% of your backup data? That seems a little fishy. What was going on? And the customers sometimes will say, yeah, absolutely. It was planned. We're migrating databases. No problems here. Other times, they'll be shocked. What do you mean 50% of our backup data was deleted? We absolutely didn't authorize that. Or even confirm, yes, we are currently impacted by a ransomware attack, and we really need your help. At that point, again, our team will step in to help orchestrate that recovery and help manage the recovery of business-critical data. So let's take a look at a real-life example there. This is an international jewelry retailer who experienced a ransomware attack that was coupled with credential theft. So the threat actor behind the attack, immediately prior to executing the ransomware encryption, logged in using stolen administrative credentials and not only deleted the backup data, but also deleted the administrative profiles. So the real administrators for that backup environment were not able to log in and understand what was going on. This was particularly devastating in this instance because the data that was deleted was the data they needed to run their payroll for the company, and it was very close to the end of the month. Seeing the mass deletion event, we reached out to the customer proactively, and they confirmed, yes, we are experiencing an attack. We're having a problem. What can you do to help? And with our team, they were able to restore 2 servers worth of data within hours. And most importantly, get that business critical data back that allowed them to run their payroll, pay their employees on time. The other outcome here was that they implemented a robust MFA, multi-factor authentication strategy to ensure that this kind of credential theft couldn't happen again. And we were able to bring their data back because of, as Stephen mentioned, that delayed deletion. So we still had the data in that inaccessible backup cache so that it was still there for them even after they experienced that mass deletion event. So with that, I will hand it over to Badri, who's going to speak a little bit more about that accelerated recovery and how that can go at your company and elsewhere.
Thank you, Celeste. Stephen and Celeste talked to you about the first two pillars of Druva's multi-layered defense approach to securing customer data against ransomware. I'm going to talk to you about the third pillar, which is around accelerating recovery itself. Why is this a problem? Let me talk a little bit about the need to go beyond protection. As we've worked with a number of customers in protecting their data against ransomware and then recovering it, what we've heard from customers is that this recovery process is often a manual process that can take weeks, if not months. And even once you have recovered your data, you're still not confident if the data is clean or if it's complete, as in you don't have any data loss. What is the reason for this? What we found is that these systems on the security side as well as on the backup side are still fairly siloed, and there's a lot of iteration that happens between the security operations side and the backup system side. And some of the problems we specifically uncovered which affect the ability to respond and recover is the fact that there's a lack of orchestration between these two systems. Security teams often want to understand the spread. The primary environment is not always available. And then the backup environment provides a window into the spread of malware. Security teams want access to the infected backup data to be able to do things like forensics. And even once you're ready to recover, there often is data loss because you're forced to make compromises around speed of recovery and so on. And lastly, you're still not sure if the data you've restored is contaminated or not. All of these affect the recovery time itself and raises the need to accelerate this recovery process even more. Let's take a look now at Druva's solution for accelerating recovery in the event of a ransomware attack. We like to think of it in terms of these three pillars around contain, identify, and recover. Druva comes in the aftermath of a ransomware attack, where the security team is either investigating an attack or has completed an investigation and wants to initiate recovery as part of their incident response playbook. So from a containment standpoint, what you can do in collaboration with the security team is understand what is the spread of infection in your backup environment, what are the backups that are infected. You can actually quarantine those backups in Druva's accelerated ransomware recovery, where these quarantine backups will not be available for restores as part of the normal restore process. So once you've contained the spread of ransomware itself, you can focus on identifying what are potential anomalies in your backup environment. So Druva is actually monitoring your backups continuously on its cloud platform, where we can baseline your environment in terms of the data modification patterns across backups. And we're able to provide anomalies in terms of unusual data activity, or UDA. That's a feature as part of our accelerated ransomware recovery offering, where we can provide indicators of abnormal rates of change, of file additions, modifications, encryptions, and so on, that might be indicators of ransomware attacks. And you can use this information to figure out what data it is you want to be able to recover. That comes to the third piece of this framework, which is around the recover piece. So the recover piece itself consists of two main features in there, one of which is around an integrated malware scan on our backend, where when you restore a backup, we are able to filter out malware using our integrated malware scan engine. Or if you choose to, your security team can plug in indicators of compromise or file hashes that they have from their threat intelligence sources, and Druva will actually filter out matching file hashes during the restore process itself. And lastly, we have this really great, exciting feature around curated recovery that we just introduced last month that solves this problem around data loss in case of a ransomware recovery situation. Let's take a look at what curated recovery is and what problem does it solve. If you take a look at this visual here, you see this timeline of files being modified in your primary environment. We have visibility into that in a backup environment. Ransomware is often known to have a dwell time of up to 90 days, wherein it's modifying data very stealthily, trying to evade all kinds of detection. And once the threat actor has determined what they want to do, after performing reconnaissance and so on, they're ready to do a mass encryption event. So here, why this matters is when it comes time to recovery, your good, clean data is actually spread across different backup restore points. And it's a non-trivial exercise to be able to put together good, clean data while minimizing data loss. So if you look at the visual here, you can see that at snapshots 124, 125, and so on, files have been encrypted. So you would have to put together files across different backup sets, if that makes sense. With curated recovery, what we do is that we automate that process for you. You have that timeline from your security team's investigation. You plug in that timeline. Druva will trawl through all of the backups in that timeline and be able to figure out what's the cleanest, most up-to-date version of each file and put together that curated snapshot that minimizes data loss and at the same time ensures your data is clean. Let's take a look at what the user experience looks like. And this is something we've put together after a lot of extensive testing with customers and feedback with customers. The process is like fairly simple, where once your security team provides you a timeline, you can provide that time window as input to the generation of the curated snapshot or as part of the curated recovery process. We also have a number of knobs in there where you can accelerate the recovery process even more. You can do things like filter out media files that you might not care about during a recovery process. You can filter out well-known strains of file extensions for ransomware strains that are well known in the threat intelligence community. And at the same time, if you choose to, you can configure our integrated malware scan as well to be able to filter out all the malicious files that match up to our malware scan or the indicators of compromise your security team had provided. Once you do that, there's a curated snapshot job that's generated, and then the curated snapshot is available for you as part of your regular restore process for whatever workload it is you're looking at, be it on the server side or on the endpoint side. So we've talked about our contain, identify, and recover framework around how we accelerate recovery. Let's go back to that problem statement around how we actually orchestrate this recovery into your security environment. Druva is laser focused on protecting your data and accelerating that recovery. We are focused on the backup environment itself. And we work with great partners like Palo Alto Networks, FireEye, who focus on the primary environment. And via APIs and integrations, we orchestrate this recovery back into the primary environment. Let's take a look at what some of those integrations are. We have a fairly rich set of REST APIs that allows you to integrate Druva's backup environment, monitoring of the backup environment, security posture of the backup environment into your security operations tooling. Specifically on the security incident and event management side, we have out-of-the-box integrations with the likes of Splunk, FireEye Helix, and so on, where you can address very detailed activity around visibility, as well as monitoring the security posture of your backup environment, things like abnormal restore locations and so on. Increasingly, modern security operations team are running playbooks as part of their incident response operations using security automation and orchestration platforms like SOAR tools, Palo Alto's XSOAR. We have an integration there with XSOAR that's available where you can run playbooks like look for malicious file hashes in Druva, being able to quarantine, being able to facilitate a recovery and so on. Prem Ananthakrishnan will be having a great session on this with Palo Alto's Rishi Bhargava on this. Definitely check that out. We'll have more detail in that. So in summary, we've talked to you about how Druva helps accelerate your recovery in context of a ransomware attack, in the aftermath of a ransomware attack. And we've also talked about how we bridge the gap between security and backup in terms of these integrations and facilitate the orchestration and automation of the recovery back into your primary environment. I'll turn it back to Stephen now to do a wrap-up. Thank you.
Thanks, Celeste and Badri, for walking us through how to operationalize your security and accelerate your recovery with Druva. Now, if you remember how we started the day, we talked about these three pillars around how you're going to be able to really protect yourself from ransomware. And the first one was you need a solution you can trust, something that's been proven in the market. And as we walked through the data integrity and availability, we showed that Druva from day one has built in these integrity checks to keep you safe from ransomware. It's been proven for over 7 years. Then Celeste walked through the operational security. Remember, there's an army of attackers trying to compromise your environment. And Druva, as a service, makes sure that you have an army on your side as well. And then finally, you want to integrate for rapid recovery. You want to integrate across your organization. Data protection isn't a silo, it's part of a larger ecosystem with security, with operations, with legal. And Badri walked through not just how to optimize your recovery, but how to make sure it integrates with your overall environment. So, remembering those three pillars: solution you can trust, a service that is on your side, and something that integrates into a modern cloud stack.